Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Dave Dobbs here. It's the 15th of May, Friday the 15th. Welcome. We're in a crazy time. We are literally playing Russian roulette with nuclear power stations. Literally playing Russian roulette with nuclear power stations, traversing our whole sun. And it seems all the planets orbiting around our sun: Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars, not Jupiter, not Saturn. But we are passing past. This image here is an image I've just seen posted up, actually. Shiny light disk object filmed in Nairobi, Kenya. That's just come in. It's Jupiter, in my opinion. I mean, let's just jump across to, say, an image of Jupiter and see that disk down there and the cluster. And you know, we've over the while we've seen so many images like this, you know, when Steve Olsen sort of like posted it up in 2018, did a kind of like you know, put one over the other, you know, and we saw Jupiter again, and I've been saying it's up there in this position. Did they say an account of where it is? Well, yeah, there's I was enjoying the sunset when I let my eyes wander, and then right above me up in the sky I saw what appeared to look like a small shiny disc. I immediately rushed out to get my camera. Managed to get videos. So, you know, he shows it and it's a bit blurry here and there, and potentially I'm not getting it right, but that's what I'm expecting to see. Remember what, you know, we saw. Let me just change my share because I'm going to show you some epic shit, some epic shots from right across the board, mostly of, obviously, you know, the main thing I charter in this has been the tail, the twin tail objects, trying to ascertain their duration, where they're coming from, where they're going. And man, I've got a show for you, because I haven't made a video in quite a while. I've just been trying to bring it all together. You know, right now, you know, I say that there's, you know, we're playing Russian roulette with nuclear power stations and what have you. But, you know, we've got 450 supposedly operational nuclear power stations on the planet. Now, if we go to, you know, obviously I often talk about the kind of perihelion point, don't I? So of when supposedly Jupiter is officially at its next perihelium, its closest point to the sun, which are the official figures of that are ironically the 20th of January 2023. And if you go back an exact duration of Jupiter from that date, you come to pretty much the exact time Chernobyl went bang. Not Chernobyl, Fukushima went bang. And then if you go back another sequence, another exact duration again, you come to pretty much the same time Chernobyl went bang. And I've talked a lot about this anomaly with Jupiter. You know, we all saw it in 2018. It was so massive, wasn't it? It was massively blue. You know, Scott Sion got an amazing shot of it, I think around about May, June, you know, on his Planet X News channel. It was a phenomenal shot. You know, we were calling it the Blue Kachina then. I had, at that stage, it was a woman called Christina Lamont, who was absolutely shouting to me, Dave, look, I really think this is all about Jupiter. I really think this is all about Jupiter. She was a bit like, sort of like, she was as kind of full on with it as I remember when Becky Lewis was screaming out to me saying, Dave, I'm catching so much other stuff. Why won't you talk about this other stuff? And I just, you know, for me, it's all about the patterns. It's all about the patterns, because there is so much data. I'm going to show you some of the data that's just come in over the last kind of 3 months. I'm going to try and bring some of this data together to give you a bit of an understanding, because we're in a situation right now that we've just seen like 100 little, what was it? It was something, I don't know if I've got it on this one, Dutch since. We've just seen on May the 13th, scientists detected more than 100 earthquakes beneath Luihai. I don't know how you say that. Could anyone in the comments maybe tell? Because I can remember when sort of like Kilauea went off, and I just didn't know how to say Kilauea either. So, however you say that, because I don't want to do any insult to these, because many of these volcanoes are named after gods and things like that. So it'd be terrible to get the pronunciation wrong, but we're expecting this, aren't we? Or are we expecting this? This is the big debate, you know. Well, that's why because I've been expecting flybys, and man, you know what has gone on. Let me take you through the sequence of events. Let me change. Let me do a new share to this shot here, which was put up on the 29th of March, 2020 by Mr. MBB 333. And now we could call that, I don't know what sort of, you know, in my opinion, that's a flyby. And these clouds that are bellowing out here, what they are a result of, I mean, I might be completely wrong here, but I'm going to give you my workings on this. You know, it confused the hell out of me, because it kind of comes in, well, it's let me come over to here. This is kind of earthquake report roundabout for November. This is pretty much not too much going on. This is for December. You know, it's 11 plus 6s. This is when I'm assuming it was coming in. You know, we'd seen Alex Lujan's amazing shot, and all these bring. We will just come past these here and there. But just to kind of like, before I run through the shots here, we go to January, and we get one earthquake. Where was that? That earthquake was in Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. And what was that? What date was that? January the 28th. And I was saying about January. Do you remember? I was saying January the 20th. We're around about that time. We're going to get the big earthquake, and we're going to get the passage. You know, I'm not just trying to kind of prove that I'm right here or wrong here, because this is going to get a lot more complicated. What's going on? I'm going to show you a picture now, which is expanding. I said that we would get to this stage. And, you know, we're seeing, you know, we saw this big earthquake in Christchurch on the 22nd of November, 2016. We'd seen I'd said there would be a big passage in 2016, literally on the day of the Brexit vote. Just like Trump's inauguration day, when we had the massive great flyby exactly on the same time on his inauguration. You know, it's just insane. Massive one that really put this kind of this odd pattern on the map, really, because it was such a sensational shot, which led to this next flyby, which was in the 200-day alignment when I'd come to America. So we'd seen these big patterns, and then you had the big, you know, the ESO, you know, 230 million light years away, two neutron stars had collided, which had created this gamma ray radiation burst. And this electromagnetic pulse that had been picked up by the LIGO kind of like gravitational sensors, and also the sensors down in sort of like the ESO sensors down in Chile, apparently, and another sensor in it. I think there was three basic sensors around the globe that simultaneously picked it up, you know, exactly at the same time. So we know this thing's come with massive seismology, don't we? You know, how many times have I said, okay, guys, you know, I hate to say it's going to be seismic anomalies, like the big tsunami that happened in Indonesia, and just before, you know, you literally see the video and say, you cannot tell me there's not going to be oceanic anomalies at this passage at that specific point, you know. But that December earthquake, Christchurch, and then the sort of like and then we come to the sort of like the 2018, where we just see Kilauea going off, like we just breaks all the records of our understanding of volcanoes. It redefines it so much. And you know, we've got to remember the whole geological feature of where we're seeing Kilauea on the Big Island in Hawaii, sitting right at the end of the cap of this massive, great long range of 4,600 kilometers of volcanoes, all active under the ocean right now, going right up to the Kamchatka Peninsula, going right up to the top there, you know, which is the other end of this massive, great fault line. So over here, we're seeing an earthquake that occurred exactly when I was expecting it to go off. And I'm just going to show you the relative this, and then we're going to come to February. Do we see anything in February? Basically, not a lot of activity. I mean, yes, there's, you know, don't get me wrong. Even now, there's 33 volcanoes going off, and you know, we've got a lot of volcanic activity right now. But have we got any indication that we've got something like what happened in Kilauea in 2018? Have we just seen it? Did we see it? Because if we come up to now, that's February, we come to March, and we get this 7+, what was it? It was east of the Kuril Islands, Russia. Okay, so east of the Kuril Islands. Basically, that is literally at the bottom of the Kamchatka Peninsula, which, you know, the largest volcano in the Northern Hemisphere is on the Kamchatka Peninsula. And that is the arm of Russia that comes down right between where Japan comes one side of the Pacific Basin, and then, you know, British Columbia and Alaska come the other side, and it drops down. And between that arm coming down, you've got a massive fault line, 4,600 kilometers of active volcanoes that are not being talked about, that are also chucking all this carbon dioxide into the air, along with 29 new volcanoes, 28 new volcanoes on Antarctica, as well as the entire ring of fire that you're already taking into account, which is massively active, plus Etna, plus Stromboli, plus we're starting to get new activity in around the Mediterranean basin. So we're starting to see that. But look at the date of that, 7.4. Let's just quickly go forward. I'm going to come back to that, but we're going to come to April. And we're just starting to see, it says none there now, but this was a few days ago. Now, okay, we're still at 6.5, but this is going to be more like 8 earthquakes now, because in the last few days, this is changing so quickly, because I just set this up like a couple of days ago, lining all this up. I've been lining it up for a while anyway, but so let's go back to that, and go back to that, and that is 25th of March. That's the only real date. That's the only real thing since January. You know, apart from the Idaho one, which was a very similar time. You know, it's only a matter of days later. So let's go back now to just to get a proportion on this. So we've got March the 29th, when I'm suggesting that this is the flyby that's coming by. This is the one that actually fits in more closely with the one I've been kind of following. You know, it's a bit confusing. Basically, we know there's something like 82 moons. Jupiter has something like 82 moons. You know, which ones are specifically affecting us? You know, our sun is passing by all of them. And maybe this is a much, much more complicated thing than we realize. But, you know, think of also 29th of March. 29th of March was when, do you remember in 2016 when I just clocked this 200-day timeline, and we'd had the sighting on the 22nd of December 2015? It was just like, Dave Dobbs is a mad one. You know, you promised us a flood, you promised us a big flyby, and it's only a tiny little thing. And it was really quite small, but it did at least come by. At least I got my maths right, even though I hadn't got the sizes of this right, even though I hadn't got the proportions of anything about this. We had found this pattern. And if this pattern has led to this, and that pattern has led to this by not just one sighting, but various sightings that amalgamate into this message, it becomes even more profound, because it means that the objects trailing behind this clearly Jupiter because of so much research, because of so many sightings that I've showed you now, because of the kind of GFP shot on the 14th of October in 2000 and I think it was the 14th of October 2016, the big plasma shot, the one I always say that is exactly clearly went into the side of Mars, because it's exactly where we were expecting it to be, and Mars was in exactly that same space, and bash, there you get the big kind of like the big plasma charge between Mars and Jupiter, and you see Jupiter as as bright as anything, really, and it's that, and obviously, you know, it's the seismology of like I say, the ESO shot that happened on the 15th of August 2017. Then the sort of like August, and then September. Then it was the big. I guess it was, you know, I'm forgetting exactly all the sightings here, but then, you know, you remember we had the big tsunami in 2018, exactly where I'm predicting it, and I was always thinking it was the Twin Tower that was doing that. But then this was also demonstrating this exact one calendar month that enabled me to sort of like suggest that this was going to happen. And then of course the tsunami strikes, and we're always kind of number crunching whether or not this is just complete chaos in these orbital mechanics. You know, how could I have managed to predict so many flybys unless there is some order to this, that it presents itself in such an order, perhaps, that it to identify itself as Jupiter, even though we see the order of the Twin Towers representing this. Well, I over and over show you this 200-day timeline that morphs into this 400-day, you know, this kind of yearly, if you like, 400 days, where we have to deduct four days from this 200-day cycle each year to get, because we're always like, remember the, you know, the sighting on Trump's inauguration on the 21st of January 2017, epic sighting. Hopefully we'll get to it, but let's just keep going with this anyway, and coming down. But another shot of that. This was April the 22nd, also Mr. MBB 333. He's got a lot of different shots there. He's got some, I mean, he does a lot of different interesting sort of coverage of what's happening in the skies. Really, it's really quite amazing. But then we get this shot on the 1st of May. It's just, you know, it starts getting a little bit confusing here, because then we've got this shot coming in. This was posted by this was posted by Alex Lujan, and showing this shot. And you know, many people say it's what are they calling this, atlas or something like that, but it's, to me, this is one of these flybys that has gone by and is reflecting the light. You know, this was kind of very similar to the shot that Matt Rogers posted on the 15th of August 2016. Do you remember the one that really put him on the map? You've got to believe now, folks. You've got to believe he was up in the Isle of Hull just filming it. He'd just been kind of filming clouds and that sort of stuff, and he'd been seeing that same red glow, catching it, and he was just getting nearer, and he was convinced it was getting nearer and nearer the horizon. Do you remember on that morning he was like, he'd come back and he'd filmed this whole thing, and he was just like, when it just came out, it's just like, I can see this. You can see the red, and then just suddenly the clouds clear, and you see that just massive, and you see all the stuff in his tail, all the debris. Just, oh my God, it was just such an epic shot, wasn't it? It was just such an epic capture, such a momentous, just such a massive effort that was massively, you know, got massively rewarded for that, in terms of, like, you know, just for his effort of going up there and capturing that. So we're getting all these sort of telltale signs. Who Paula Gilly posted a very interesting, you know, Paula Gilly was one when she first caught something, you know, she was just like, you know, you just can't tell what this is. You just can't work this out. And she's in so many ways. She's absolutely right. You know, it's just like, but it does have patterns. It does seem to have these kind of big patterns, but still, for all of this research, you know, and at the beginning of this video, I was saying we're playing, you know, Russian roulette with nuclear power stations as we're watching this fly by. Like I say, because of the movements of Jupiter, we can clearly track this to Jupiter, and we can see each time this has gone by really close so far, when it's been close enough to cause big enough earthquakes, we've lost each time. You know, in 1986, when this thing flew by, when we were all just saying it's Halley's Comet, when it flew by, we were saying it caused Chernobyl. You know, we had 133 reactors either operational or being built in 1986. 133 thereabouts. So that's about 1%. If one went out, that's a little bit less than 1%, roundabout. Many of those were in construction, so it's around about 1%. In 2011, when Jupiter came by and we had that, and we had 400 reactors going off, we lost 3 of them. And that's getting on to nearly 1%. Probably of the operational. Now we've managed to get that up to another 50 operational. You know, they're all the press about is they're all being downgraded. It's a broken industry that's been really damaged by Fukushima, blah, 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 blah. TEPCO's lost 97% of its share value, blah, 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 blah. All the rest of it. But it's still managed to get that number to 450 nuclear power stations operating when we're clearly flying by this thing. And if we kind of like see what the nature of this, I mean, this was an epic shot. Do you remember the last one I said? It was, who was this? This is Brandon Corey Nagley, who's been putting some absolutely epic shots together. Really, it has. I mean, really, really epic shots. Just stunning, just like Mr. MBB 333 shot there. I mean, it's just. Really, just do you remember when the last time we saw it, he was showing a very similar image, but this red dot looked like a red, like a little spider with little red legs, and I said it would get much bigger. And look, there you go, that's what you're expecting to see. So, but what was the specific one that I wanted to? There's this red glow again. See this aspect here and this aspect here. See those twin aspects there? Very similar to what we saw on the 20th. I will go forward. All these bits I'm mentioning that I'm not showing, I will bring them in, possibly in 2 shakes. Who was that? That was again Brandon Corey Nagley again. This epic shot of something that was on May the 9th. So that's just about a week ago. Another shot just like that. Brandon, you really are getting some fantastic shots together. You know, you're obviously, you know, I've got to say the Christian community are just like, I'm not just saying it's Christians who sent this to him, but the Christian community believe this because of the text in the Bible. They're open to this as an idea, so they don't struggle with it. They don't, you know what I mean? You know, whether it's there's another epic shot. Who was this? This was just this is Alex Luhan, the Planet X channel again. I mean, Alex, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. But those 2 orbits there, they do tell us an enormous amount about the kind of like how far they are away. That's literally, as I'm understanding, the ecliptic plane of Jupiter that we're looking up at there. We're getting an idea of points that, you know, we are literally constantly cutting through the ecliptic plane of Jupiter at the moment, as we're moving in this binary system. And it always has been a binary system. All of this has been to hide all of that. So, Alex, it's just an amazing shot. So we're going to come forward now, just to jump forward a few, and we're just going to come to more about now. And Turkey UFO report just put a this was a it looks like a Mexican webcam stick, the Mexico shot, which is always amazing. They're always amazing shots because it seems to be a very unobstructed sky around that way. But the that's just, now what is that big white glow? Is that possible, the illuminance of the tail of something coming in? Or is that Jupiter reflecting light? You know, and then we get this scene. This was posted one day. No, hang on. It says 1 day ago, but I put this up probably yesterday, so that could be as much as 2 days old. I mean, it could also possibly be Jupiter, except that here we have this. It's looking ominous. And then we're getting the seismology reports, we're getting the earthquake reports, and all the sightings I've got of something coming in and going already. We're looking like, it's looking like, you know, fundamentally it's looking like 3 objects, not 2. We've already seen that report. You know, and I just come back to this because I just thought I'd bring and show you that, because that image we bought about back in September 2019, and it was at the end of September. So end of September, October, November, December, January, February, March. So that's kind of the reason I'm of a mind that you can see the dwarf planet there and you can't normally see it is because that's our sun, and the dwarf planet is beyond, but it's concealed by a massive device that is just as impossible to believe as Planet X, I'm afraid. But you've seen the shield, whatever that thing is. I call it the shield. We've shown epic pictures of it because of images captured by Stereo Secchi B and various other kind of satellites that have captured it, and no other kind of no end. I've shown you many of my videos. Certainly, if you look at the Colburn Bible, I've got a video called the Colburn Bible, and it shows you the images of that. You'll find it in my videos, and it gives you a text of one of the oldest kind of like, just read out the text of one of the oldest accounts of the flyby of this, that supposedly it describes this massive great shield, and when things go behind it, they disappear, and this thing seems to protect us. And we've seen so many epic pictures along with all the epic images that that I've just shown you there of this thing exactly. You know, you've seen so many. So I wanted to just go back to some before I start talking about a little bit of an overview of what's happening now. And are we going to start seeing bigger earthquakes? Is there a bigger one coming in? I want to go back to, I've updated just because I think it's such an important nugget of information. It's so massive that I want to do another quick share. You share. And I want to show you my updated, you've seen this before, my updated version of the sun's 336-year orbit crossing Jupiter and Saturn. 4 periods of 84 years with 7 cycles of Jupiter in each. And do you remember how I showed you how this image was, this same thing has been put on a 50p coin in 2017. And when I discovered, I would have never realized that, you know, it was a commemoration to, well, I'll just quickly show you. I'll just very quickly show you that. just so we're all on this kind of same page. Where is it? This one here. Is that right? Ah, there we go. Sir Isaac Newton's 50 pence. And you've got our sun is represented here, coming around here. I don't know, sorry, my cursor is very small. I'll bring it out a little bit there, and you can see my cursor again. Coming, that's our sun, crossing Saturn and then Jupiter, and then coming back up and around, and then crossing Jupiter and then Saturn in this mad cycle on 84 years being each aspect of it. And so now we come to back to what I've done here to show you these 4 crossing points. To show you these 4 crossing points. If we start here, we got, this was the first dwarf planet, the first of some 6,000 supposedly dwarf planets, Omicron Ceti, or otherwise one known as Mirror. It had an 11-month brightness cycle, supposedly. It was discovered on the 13th of August, 1596. And then we come round to 84 years later, and we come to Halley's Comet, discovered by Isaac Newton on the 19th of November 1680. Suppose it had a 75-year orbit, and then supposedly there was another sighting of a comet coming out from the side of the sun, like we're seeing now, also in 1680. Now, then we go 84 years from the discovery of that, and we come to the time of Uranus and the 13th March 1781, 84-year orbit. Ironically, if we go 84 years, we come to the time of Neptune, 23rd of September 1846, 165 years. Now, if you go 165 years, 265 is basically 330, so it takes you right to that point. So if we carry on 84 years from there, we come to Pluto, the time Pluto was discovered, and 1930. And then we go 84 years, and we're coming now back to Eris, the time Eris is. So every cycle, I thought I'd bring that in just to try and show you, give you an idea of some of the maths of that, just so if you want to take that into any greater discussion, or you try and convey that in a conversation to someone, and it's just that you start selling them and it's a bit too much maths in one fell swoop to try and get your head around, and you realize it's completely lost and they just don't get it. It's I just noticed that in 84 years there was 4 cycles of in 84 years there were 7 cycles of Jupiter. I just find that quite ironic. And in 336 there's actually 28 and a half cycles of Jupiter, which I also find that ironic, because if you can imagine, as we're coming round, it's like a mirror image as we experience over here. Like, this is the 1939 point as well. Just after this, we discover it in 1930, Pluto. But then Carlos Ferrada's big prediction that there'd be massive earthquakes in Chile on the 24th of January, 1939, which happened ironically on the 20th of January. Just like the massive tsunami that happened on the 20th of January, 1606. And which maps out with this 330-year cycle, because that's 1606. And remember, this was 1596. That was just 12 years after that. The great tempest that kind of destroyed the Spanish Armada, 1588, the time when they changed the Gregorian calendar and they deleted the 13th month. Changed all the dates around to suit their advantage, 1582. And so we see this massive manipulation where everything moves in, but and then we kind of so that just that 28 and a half months, because you can picture it. If we if we new share, maybe go back to Safari there. Yeah, so if we come back here, I mean, I just stopped here on this Friday the 13th, the Galileo Zodiac. Do you remember when I'd finally realised that, oh my God, Galileo wasn't showing us the Copernicus model at all. Galileo was silenced. He was under house arrest for what he was saying, clearly. You know, the Copernicus who was in, you know, some kind of like some good, you know, 50 years or something before him, really had postulated a theory that the church ironically hadn't killed him for, or certainly burnt him for, or kept him under house arrest. And then sort of like when Galileo sees this, he comes out with sort of like a, you know, he's under house arrest, but the Copernicus system is pushed forward. And but if we just picture that, why I say the 28 and a half, why I say the 28 and a half cycles of Jupiter is if we set Jupiter in motion there, because you've got to think, you know, I'm of mind that Jupiter is in the kind of like, in terms of, you know, from looking at it from Earth's going round position, going round the sun in terms of months of the year, to use that as our kind of like bearings, it's in the kind of like October going into the November position, which doesn't fit which doesn't fit with kind of what you're really seeing, except that that's kind of using, you know, you're thinking on the ecliptic plane, but think way above the ecliptic plane and in the northern hemisphere. So it can, so now it's on just, it's in front of the sun compared to us. It's in front of the sun compared to us. So it's reflecting light back, but it's actually much, much closer to us than we realize. It's not way out past Mars at all, which is why the confusion. So what we're doing there is we're setting the orbital angle of Jupiter going out. And then we are going to, so this is Jupiter going along, and I've just got two of its furthest orbiting moons there, which I call Bob and Connie, because I don't know what to call them. We call them sort of like, you could also call, I often call them Shiva and Parvati as well. I often call them sometimes Jesus and Mary Magdalene. I mean, call them what you will, but it looks like there's a third. You know, and lots more, but potentially three that affect us. The one that Alex Lujan caught on the 1st of September, exactly where I was expecting it to be, but going the wrong way around. The other aspect, the truly isolating where Jupiter really was, on top of all the other data, which was the final kind of, it was just like, guys, this just changes everything. Do you remember that? It was just changed everything. And now we're setting the sun going where the sun is actually passing Jupiter at this aspect. Can you see here where the sun, we've got, let's just make that a little bit easier. We'll get all the arrows going out. Now you've got the ideas of which way they're going. Remember, Jupiter's also moving around planet X once every 12 years. So we're just seeing an aspect of it as where they're sitting next to each other in their positions. And can you see how I'm doing it like that, trying to give you an idea of the long-term picture, but you've also got to remember that Jupiter is moving round and around planet X, and it's coming to this one aspect or in its cycle that when our solar system is going past that aspect, it cuts across one side of it over here. But when it's coming around the other side, and Jupiter's coming around the other side, and our sun is also coming around the other side, as in, we go back over to, let's just quickly stop that share, new share, and we come back to this shot here. And so this is this aspect here, our sun passing Jupiter here, if you like. And then, but this aspect here that we saw Carlos Ferrada saw, because Carlos Ferrada said, you're going to see it again in 1999. Why did he know that? Why did he know that? Because he knew it was Jupiter. He absolutely had to have known it was Jupiter. Why he called it all these different names when he clearly had the mechanics of Jupiter in his, well, I mean, maybe just, how long were we all looking at it? Maybe he just didn't, how long were we all looking at it? How long was I looking at it with people like Christina Lamont saying, Jupiter, Dave. And I'm just like, and then Steve, like I say, in 2018, there's all those other epic shots. And then, well, it was actually 2018 was the shots that we saw when we were all seeing the epic shots. Those shots I just showed you, and then just sort of like 2019 was when Steve did the overlays, and Christina Lamont. I no doubt she'd been hounding him as well. She's sort of like just like Dave. Blessings to everyone that shouts out to me and tries to get me to. I'm so sorry. I'm so crap with communication. I just, my entire life is like moving through this kind of quagmire of stuff that I always feel holds me back, and so I'm having to constantly. So I have to separate myself from so much shit to be able to do the stuff I do. And if I go onto Facebook or something, I just feel like I'm sort of like I just know that friends are going to shoot you down, and it's so personal when friends shoot you down, especially when they do it callously and they just don't care. And I'm just like, we've all got the right to our opinions. That I just feel like our social media aspects they herd us into our lowest common denominator. I know that sounds painful to say or to possibly hear, but they lower us into our lowest common denominator, and so they weaken our resolve, and we go to it like flies to a high-speed fan. We get splattered up against it because it's just too personal and it just feels too, I don't know, I struggle with it all a little bit. I struggle with those social media, but please persevere, won't you? Well, that's what I'm trying to say. And especially in the comments, because don't forget that I'm not very good with all the comments and that sort of stuff. And I often read them. I don't always comment on the comments though, but I'm always flattered by them and that sort of stuff. But when you're writing comments to me, you're writing comments to everyone. It's a blog. You're sending it to everyone. People read comments massively. So when you're praising me or you're shouting at me, you're telling everyone what you feed. And I like that there's this bit where you can express an opinion about something and leave it there and have your say on that, whether you think it's total rubbish. You must think it's, for so many of you that are absolutely religiously in this Copernicus model, and it is just a religious model. This, it's been going since the 1500s. It's just an outdated nonsense. It's a grand deception, folks, and they're all, these people are massively in on it. And when you're in on it, you have to, when Mike Brown comes up, there's no Eris, the goddess of chaos. He encodes so much information into this to make sure you understand, and that the people around him understand that it is a grand deception. He's trying to give as much away as possible. This is where the money, the Copernicus system is where all the money pumps into it. It's the slave story that's behind this whole epoch. And it's what we're coming out of now if we want to come out of this story. But we are being held in place by, it's just like it was in Shakespeare said. Excuse me 1 second. Okay, so sorry about that. That stopped my flow a little bit, but we will go over to, very quickly, I thought we could go over to, well, we'll come over to here first of all, and we just look at the fact we've just seen a Schumann resonance spike 4 days at the same time. Comet Swan seen on stereo, Comet Atlas, I suppose it means 12 pieces still bright. 12, I don't know, but it could be that. But okay, so next we're going to come to the 20th of January 2023, which is the official kind of next perihelion point of Jupiter. And I just wanted to just run through that. We've just done that, 20th of January 2023, and we've done it 100 times. And so we can just, you know, we come around about the time of the 2011 Fukushima. Then I noticed that I've made a slight error before that. I must have put 11.86, not 89. So there is kind of like, remember the actual period of perihelion is like, you know, it's like a 5-10 day period anyway. You know, it's listed as it's a generalized period of about 5 or 10 days of the kind of point where Jupiter is officially close. I mean, I don't believe this at all. I'm showing you a completely different model, but isn't it irony that if we go from the official perihelion point that they give, and we go back, we come to the point Fukushima occurs, and then we go back the time before there, we come to 1999 when we saw comet Halley-Bopp, and then we come to 1987 when Fukushima, when Chernobyl and went bang. Storm of '87, kind of like, we saw all the big volcanoes going off again. Then big earthquakes, big kind of like Halley's Comet again. 63. I don't know if that was a massive time, but that was the most likeliest time around about between 60s and 70s that we were actually at the closest perihelion point. Really, our sun was at the closest perihelion point to Planet X itself, the dwarf planet itself. So that's a very interesting time. That was, and then 51, which is around about, you know, it's about 1-2 years after the creation of NATO, isn't it interesting? And also 51 was when we had the UFO sightings. And we're going to come back to these UFO sightings in a little bit. I'm just going to bring this to a bit of a conclusion here, but I think, but the 1951 was when they'd had, let's see if I can find well, let's just keep going with that, and we'll come back to 1951. But 39, obviously, the year of the sort of like Second World War began. 27, year of the Great Crash, ironically. 1916, First World War. The 1904, we were invading Tibet. 1892, you know, my history is all of it's like, you know, we've got a lot of dates there. Just have a little look at the dates. I want to go back to a few key dates here, just to go right back. Because we're coming, as we get further and further away, we're obviously going further and further away from the passage of in this particular aspect, Jupiter. You know, because this was the big aspect that Carlos Ferrada predicted and saw coming in. And so we saw the big build up towards that coming in. But then we go back to the sort of 1596 and we see this falls on 1607. Well, this is as, you know, it was 1606 that the tsunami occurred on the levels in Somerset and flooded Bristol and caused enormous amounts of damage. You know, so it was more like a tide. It came in, took 10 days to come in and go out. But that was 1606, and then we go just the next cycle before, and we come to almost exactly, it's 1595. And we're talking about the time when the first dwarf planet was ever discovered. And we go back here, and we just come back here. And I just thought, interesting, we come down to 1559, we get a flyby, and 1547. I'm going to come back to these dates because these dates are slightly significant as well, in such that this is around about the time that the Nuremberg UFO anomaly happened. Massive sightings of UFOs where they were just destroying each other. A full blazing hour-long fight in the skies. Massive great spaceships falling from the skies. Massive great tubular spaceships where other spaceships came out of to join the fight. An hour-long fight, and big spaceships were blown clean out of the sky and crashed on the ground, burning like some kind of Orwellian kind of like tale. That's this day, and so we're going to come back to. That's why I wanted to talk about the 1952 big NATO drill just shortly after its creation, where it was a massive, great bringing all the nations together, stand up against the threat of Russia. You know, always trying to pitch a fight, always calling for aggression at these specific points. And but I wanted to come back just to do we go back as far as that? No, we don't quite go back. We can't go back as far as that. It won't number crunch as far as that. I've tried it. I can break it down onto different points, but when I do number crunch it, it comes very close to the 262 point, which is of course when we had 3 days of darkness and earthquakes right across Africa, right across Asia, and right across Europe. Now imagine nuclear power stations running on that day, and if we've got a day like that coming up, wouldn't we like to try and understand it? So because we could have this potential that they've literally shut down the entire world economy to stop those reactors. So we sort of like, if we go to from the 1939 point, the 20th of when we know we had a big flyby. So that's, we're kind of not the point where they discover Pluto, because that's when it's coming into our night sky and they're seeing it and they're like, oh my God, like we saw Comet Halley-Bopp. We see it actually in our night sky rather than it's always lost in our daylight, too close to the sun for us to not, so we can't see it. And that's where all this is, so much of this has been hiding, is in the day sky. Just like Jupiter, we're suddenly seeing it. It's in that aspect where we suddenly get a reflection of it because it's right on the opposite side. We're diametrically opposed. Where we where in September, where I showed you, I said, guys, we're next to Jupiter, and Planet X system is the actual dwarf planet. It's right on the other side of the sun to us, and we could see it. Now we're the other way round. We're literally the other way round. So it's a really special time to get a view of both of these. So the 20th of January, the date where the earthquake happened that Carlos Rada predicted, he was 4 days out, just like my 4 days incorrections, which I've got a funny feeling was potentially why, or potentially why not. He didn't call it Jupiter and he calls it, what did he call it? Herculosis. So the 20th of January, go back to 1603. Again, 1603, very close to sort of like 1596, very close to 1606. You know, very close to the 20th of January, 1606. And then we go back to the 1267 times of the Crusades. And then 931, which is ironically when King Canute was trying to stop the tide. And then we get to about 595. That's around about, I suppose, getting close to around about the time of, what was it, Muhammad. And then we come back to 259, which is very close to the 262 mark, where we get the 3 days of darkness and the 3 days of darkness. And potentially that's, you know, all these aspects are the beginning and the ends of the cycle, which again, if we go over to, we go back to here, is this passage here. And we're at this passage here. So we're at the point where, you know, like I say, Isaac Newton was, when he was seeing what he was, you know, we were told was Halley's Comet. They're going to see Halley Comets flies by. And then, and then December it flies back again, just like it's doing now. But we just have to omit that little bit of data because let's pretend that didn't happen. It's just like, guys, why are we just desperately trying to hide this when we can so easily see what's going on? It's so cyclic in its motions, just like any other kind of celestial orbital object we seem to offer. It demonstrates this. So we're going to go back to, I think we might have to try Firefox. It might have been that it was in Firefox, and let me just see if I can. We should definitely mention Estiwana here as well, because Esti has shown loads and loads of epic shots of it, and I almost completely forgot to show, because here's last real one I shared of his, I think, was, and you can see how busy he's been. That was 2 months ago, but we bought which one did we buy? That's 11 months ago, 4 months ago. So yeah, so we bought this one in, which was did I put any of my videos up? I've got so many of these running. I'm so apologies. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going up all over the place. It's such an epic shot, that is. It's one of the most important shots in the range of shots that have been captured in the Planet X in because it just told us so much. Because for me to be expecting that, saying look out for that, I was really hoping that yeah, remember that shot that just, and this is a shot that Becky Lewis shot ironically on the 29th of, it was the 28th or 29th of March 2016, and she caught the pair of them going by. Isn't that very kind of like similar, just much closer now to the shot that Alex Lujan just shot just the other day, the pair of them running together. It's this one here, utterly mesmerizing. Interesting also that the earthquake happened, the last flyby that happened, that Mr. MBB 333 posted on the 29th of March 2020. Isn't it interesting that we are starting to see, more importantly, the aspects that that effectively the orbital ecliptic plane of Jupiter is crossing the orbital ecliptic plane of our Sun. So we're getting to see all these key points, and I think that's a key part of what we're starting to recognize here. Are we coming to a, imagine if this flyby had been potentially that had come in a month after at the May point, would we have seen what we saw last year or in 2018? And are we yet to see that again? Is that, have we got another flyby now? Literally, you understand. We go back. Okay, so let's just go back over to this then, where we set Jupiter running parallel with our Sun. Remember, Jupiter, like I say, is orbiting Planet X, as our Sun is orbiting Planet X. And they've both got their specific angles of intention, and we are passing through the tails there. Now we're going to pause it there, and we notice that we've had what I call Connie and Bob, I can't remember, or Bob and Connie coming off here, and Earth is coming around here, and we've got these two coming out here. Now these two, but imagine if what's actually happening is, as it's gone by, these are coming around, they're getting trapped in our Sun, they're getting pulled through, they're getting pulled past our Sun because our Sun is so close. They're getting shot right around, accelerated right round. They're being massively heated up and they're being vaporized. The surface is literally being vaporized by the Sun, which by the intense heat of the Sun as they're cutting up through the ecliptic of our solar system, of the tiny solar system that we're actually in compared to the binary system that we're in. You know, and this is the difference between the two ecliptic planes. And so this is where they're all coming from. This is the motion of them appearing to come up from behind the Sun, because we're coming round over here. We're in this aspect, Earth coming right round here. And we've had the first one. Then we had the second one on March the 29th. And you saw the image of the first one around about December, around about January, and I posted all those images, and I showed you many people's images of the flyby, epic images of flybys. We had the seismology. Then we've had the kind of March one. Ironically, I mean, it's just, but now it looks like is it Jupiter that we're going to come close to? But you know, we saw the earthquake caused by Jupiter last year. We didn't see the earthquake, but we saw the gravitational anomaly on around about the 28th or the 22nd of October. And Steve Olson put it up, and and Mr. MBB333 put something up, and I'm sure Jeff P put something up as well. There's quite a few video makers that put something up to capture that. It's, you know, I put out that, guys, you know, we're going to expect to see something if this is Jupiter causing this, because we've done the flyby. We saw, you know, again, Alex Lujan put up an amazing shot on the 3rd of July 2019 of this thing coming in. I don't know if you remember, you actually saw the real motion of it. We were moving completely the opposite directions, so you really got a sense of motion as it went literally. The cat you see in the footage, you see it shooting by on the 3rd of July, just when I'm saying it should be going past, you know, we saw it. And then of course we saw the shot on the 1st of September that led me to updating it and saying, guys, we've got it all the wrong way around. We've got it all the wrong way around. This is the most sensational piece of data that we've had in the whole sequence, really. It's all been amazing. It's all been amazing. Every shot has been valid. It's just been this slow breadcrumb trail of piecing together how our solar system really works. But this aspect here, going back to this 28 and a half day kind of, and a half, 28 and a half cycles of Jupiter in one cycle. You can imagine in this cycle we're on this side of Jupiter, but as it comes back round on the other side and it cuts across, because it's cutting in closer to the sun, it could very likely be that we cut across on the other side. And so potentially that's why this is all being set, because this is just fraught with just cosmic mechanics. It's got number 13 written through it, just like the moon. You know, we can pull it out and try desperately to throw whatever story to conceal this kind of number 13, which is clearly part of its greater message. Basically, it's you know, if you take 396, which is how long with the passage between cycles that we see demonstrated by the twin tails, that seems to be equated by the movements of not potentially 2, if not 3 of these, then, and all the patterns that I've managed to predict as a result of that, 396 divided by 396 divided by 13 and then times 12 is 365. It's exactly, it's 1/13 more, which ironically, when you start realizing, it leads you to Jupiter, you know, and that's how I found this with this, you know, I've been running this since 2000. You know, certainly the sightings, well, they just go way back now. We've just been doing it for years, building this model slowly but surely. It's a complex thing to get your head around. And I don't know if I've really advanced or moved you forward any more with all the latest data. But I am understanding more than anything else now that this is a planet of choice, that we choose, the humanity itself has the right to choose. Where I was going to go with, if I can find the spaceship. Okay, so there was this, you probably all heard about the Baltic Sea anomaly, supposedly this flying saucer that looks a lot like the Millennium Falcon, doesn't it? And it seems to have this kind of this trail to that leads to where it's kind of sitting, and it looks very much like a flying saucer, what we'd imagine. There's all sorts of different stories. You know, the guy who supposedly found it is, you know, I forget all the details now, and I won't dig them all up to right now, but the guy who found it is a proper kind of like, you know, proper treasure hunter. Apparently he's got the most incredible set of credentials, because what he does, he goes out and finds gold and treasure and, you know, does all this stuff, and he found it, and he seems to have a lot of stuff. He doesn't look like the sort of person who'd be running a Mickey Mouse YouTube channel. Now, the reason I stopped on that is because we come over to here to the 1561 celestial phenomenon over Nuremberg, and that was 1561. And, you know, this was, and when the conflict in and again out of the sun was the most intense, they became fatigued so much an extent that they all, as said above, fell from the sun down upon the earth as if they all burned. So there was a big battle, and there was winners and losers by the sounds of it. And we think about the kind of like we're thinking about this time in terms of this Jupiter passage, how this was around about that time. And we think about that UFO, and it's very kind of that ocean's very kind of near Nuremberg, funny enough. And it's, and it's, could it be that this was one of the UFOs that didn't, I'm of a mind that, say Elizabeth I was crowned, the whole direction, that's kind of like 1559, you got Mary, Bloody Mary, it's about to, Elizabeth's in the Tower of London about to be executed if Mary can find a mandate so they can execute her against the Protestants' will. You've got the same kind of thing going off in you got the same kind of division happening in Germany around about the same time, because the whole kind of Renaissance movement is started in Germany. A little bit earlier, but then it kind of led to, that led to Henry VIII kind of breaking, and then it started happening in France. And that was that was the whole French Civil War, and Bartholomew, wanted the right to, it was the same, the Renaissance, the Protestants, the Protestant kind of revolt was happening, effectively right across Europe at this time. And then there's a sudden massive change in power. And it's almost like the controllers that were controlling that soul group, suddenly just decided they weren't getting enough control. And so they stepped in and came in with the heavies, as in they thought, right, we can't manipulate humanity from the astral. We have to step in and enforce our souls upon them, enforce our agenda upon them, at which point a higher hand seemed to step in, or possibly you see it the other way around. Except that Elizabeth did seem, it did seem that Elizabeth stopped a mighty great storm with her kind of John Dee, who came up with this idea of set fire to half the fleet. That was in 1588. And you've got all of this sort of time, I've got, you've got this sighting, which always strikes me as a bit similar, because there you've got NATO in 51 or 52. Was it in 52 or 51? 1952. What did he say? It took place on September the 19th as a British meteor fighter jet was returning to the Topcliffe airfield from exercises over the North Sea when the plane had descended to 5,000 feet. Crew on the ground spotted a silvery circular object traveling several thousand feet above the meteor, but on its same trajectory. In a report preserved in the National Archives, RAF Flight Lieutenant John Kilburn of 269 Squadron said the object began to descend towards the meteor, swinging in a pendular motion similar to a falling sycamore leaf. At first, Kilburn thought it was a parachute or engine cowling that had broken loose from the jet. Then the object stopped suddenly in midair, rotated on its axis, and zipped off at incredible speeds over the horizon. The acceleration was in excess of a shooting star, reported Kilburn. I've never seen such a phenomenon before. The movements of the object were not identifiable with anything I've seen in the air. Now, is that not him as flying saucer, literally coming out at the kind of like an airbase, shaking his booty, and then shooting off? It was showing off. It was showing superior intelligence, the level of power you have here, what you're up against. It seems that what's going to happen here is the agendas that have been controlling the earth can't control the earth directly themselves, so they can give us the technology to control the earth. But by giving us the technology is a danger, because we could run off the technology, because basically if we're enslaved to this technology and this big free trade deal is agreed, and this big free trade is agreed, and we all get carved up in this new massive agreement, which they're going to try and bring about now. You can see what Boris said, about the whole COVID thing. He wants to take us into the free trade deal, and he came up with an interesting quote in his thing before, didn't he? About what happens when after all of this comes and goes, and the destruction that we might cause, then the Earth will be ready for something new. So
Greenwich in the first week of February 2020, I can tell you in all humility that the UK is ready for that role. We're ready for the great multi-dimensional game of chess, in which we engage in more than one negotiation at once. And we are limbering up to use nerves and muscles and instincts that this country has not had to use for half a century. We will engage with Japan and other Trans-Pacific Agreement countries with old...
This is the time when the contracts are re-signed. This is the time when humanity chooses its gods. It's not like some demonic force. I don't see this as Jesus coming in to punish us. We're the ones who've put the 450 nuclear reactors on the fault lines, or are we? Has that been implemented through corporations to invade humanity and destroy humanity? Do we have any power to stop that? Apparently the industry is in a terrible, terrible state, and yet we've still got all these reactors running, and we're clearly going past this thing, and no one seems to be, its backbone is carbon dioxide. Isn't it ironically that the whole backbone of pushing that industry is literally to lower the carbon dioxide, building nuclear power stations on fault lines to stop the carbon dioxide coming out of volcanoes that we can clearly see is spewing in much greater numbers than we can ever produce in industry. I know it's producing a lot of other toxic gas as well, but much more of that is created by the rampant creation of billions of new cars in the name of stopping the carbon dioxide. Imagine a car consumes 100 times more fuel in its manufacture than it will ever use in its entire life. And so we're in this kind of situation where we're pumping out all these cars to replace these old cars. It just economically doesn't, all the pollution, all this running around, this whole crazy story that we're in. And then you see Bill Gates using carbon dioxide as the means to implement a vaccine, something to do with vaccines, where he says that we can get to carbon zero with vaccinations that will reduce the world population from rapidly going to 8 billion down to 5 billion. All by carbon dioxide. Can you see how the whole carbon dioxide thing, though the intentions of all those protesters out there that definitely want to try to change everything, the whole carbon dioxide in itself, the story is the nemesis of this planet. It's a complete and utter farcical where we are in a situation that none of the sides really want to see on any level, because it's just too unbelievable that we kind of sit here in this odd, the Christians believe we're guilty. This is going to be Jesus punishing us, that we're sinners. I would tell you that humanity is just, as I was told when I first opened up this whole process to the energy that I opened up. It said, I asked, what are we? And the answer I immediately got was a brush. That we are with a brush in which soul paints this incredible tapestry, and it can be as incredible as you choose it to be. And we're not guilty or anything. We're just the brush in which soul incarnates on this earth to do it as it does. But humanity has the right to choose its soul. And anything that interferes directly with that choice over and above the human choice, I'm of a mind comes... You saw the way, Elizabeth believed that, Mary believed that she was going to be all powerful. She was going to have her son. And then she just died of cancer when she thought she was giving birth. And Elizabeth thought she was going to be probably executed that day or the day after, the day that the new potential heir was going to be born, that would secure an absolute Catholic control over the British monarchy. through Mary's reign. And it just fell away with Mary's death, and Elizabeth was taken to the throne, and then directly after you get this kind of like this whole flying saucer thing. You know, so many accounts of this thing on all the different churches all around Nuremberg. Loads of them saw it. All these different accounts of these massive, great firefight in the sky that looks something like D-Day. Come on, guys. You can't fake that. Then you can find one of the saucers at the bottom of the ocean. You can't, you know what I mean? You see Jupiter up in the sky, just like in the day sky when it's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be heading off into the night sky doing what kind of like, you know, we're supposed to, yeah, it's just so much stuff that we're, you know, the crazy sightings of Jupiter we saw in 2018, you know, this is the world we're living in, not this kind of like 1500 Copernicus propaganda, a story that, you know, all the different sightings of just been too many, just been too much. I mean, all the stuff I've shown you just now is pretty much just in the last few months. It's just like, can you imagine when you start looking at all the data I've shown you over the kind of over the many years? God, I haven't been doing it since 2015 or whatever, the last 5 years. God, I've shown you some shots, haven't I? You know, some of the video makers out there, you know, to me, you know, all the people out there, that all of you showing you videos out there, all your different opinions and that sort of stuff, you're the front line. You're the absolute front line. You are it. You're it. And apologies for all those that are in bed with the whole carbon dioxide story that feel that I'm attacking you and your story. I'm just not. It's just that we have 450 nuclear reactors running. 450 nuclear reactors running. I mean, I understand that Extinction Rebellion have kind of changed their story and they're retracting a little bit from the carbon dioxide story, maybe. But, you know, certainly none of them ever got in contact with me and said, bloody hell, Dave, you know, when you came along and said all those volcanoes were going to go off and they went off, that was amazing, mate. You know, you really made me think. None of that. You know what I mean? You see all these big sightings. You'd have thought if you really wanted to save the Earth and you've got 450 nuclear reactors running, earthquakes and all the sightings going on. I mean, maybe this is our government shutting it all down to shut those reactors down. That could be that could be happening. That could be the precursor of why this is all being done. There's no oils to completely collapse. What's happened to nuclear prices? You know, all that industry that's not using all that power. This could be that they've done it for that reason. So I don't want to take that completely away. This could be that they've already done that and they've prepared us and they haven't told us. You know, it's, don't forget, whoever the souls, that soul group that humanity end up choosing at the end of this, and they choose every 330 years, it seems, and there's a big process in that. And so this is all about that big process, and whichever soul group we choose, humanity will have to live with the consequences. We're the ones who live and die with the consequences. We do the living and dying. They do the incarnating. We do the living and dying. So we have to understand that we should have final choice. If we're going to die for this mess and we're going to choose this, and we're going to choose those karmic repercussions, not Jesus choosing those repercussions, us choosing to just ignore that. Literally just to ignore the four. You can see what happened in Chernobyl, you can see what happened in Fukushima, and you can see by the big celestial sightings that we've got from 262 and all the sightings that we've got history of, and you start putting those details together and you start seeing this 336-year cycle, you realize that there's a lot of seismic activity at each 84 years either side of that passage because of the planets that we pass each side of that, and as you're going in, you know, look at 86, big like I say, earthquakes, you know, nuclear power stations go bang. You know, on the 26th of April 1986, there was a massive earthquake that seemed like in a distant place, but it was on that same fault line that runs down from the Himalayas up in India down into the down and onto the division of the Eurasian and the African plate, which is where the Ukraine sits. It's, you know, we can try and ignore all that. You know, we can try and ignore that, but and hope that someone else maybe cares about that. And we can go on about our nice little carbon dioxide story because it's, you know, it's better paid, let's face it. It is better paid, isn't it? If you mention carbon dioxide, they're going to chuck money at you because they can build nuclear power stations. They can do all this sort of stuff with it. You know, they can invest in horrible vaccines that can, you know, they can do it all, can't they? But they can't do it with sort of like, if you're saying no to nuclear power, they're just like, this is their agenda, this is their obsession. The nuclear fantasy is their obsession. And, but we have choice and they can't change that choice. You know, chips or whatever they choose to do, they cannot choose. And if you stay with your divine protection and you don't choose that, they cannot choose a hack that takes that away from you. They're simply not allowed to do that. Whether humanity can impose that on itself, it will be interesting because that will obviously release the technology. And ultimately, this whole relationship that's really happening here is that we were promised enormous technology by our current acting gods. And they haven't quite delivered on that deal. They have delivered in that deal, but they always want us to be enslaved to the technology they promised to us. And so we saw this as a big evolutionary jump by kind of helping them and inviting them in before. And there's a big story to that. And I talk a lot about what happened with Mars and the whole story. And this is all linked with that. And this massive story, and it's a very long story, a much bigger story. And we don't really know much about that story because our lives are kept very short, much shorter than they're meant to be. And we're de-educated, and we're in a slave class story where we remove half the universe, half our immediate solar system from us. So we have no reference to our galactic center. And so we're in this kind of slave story, all by choice, all just by choice of belief that we enter into it, by religious stories of belief, to make way for a path to choose another. And that's where journey we're on at the moment. We're on a very normal journey that our planet has done for eons and eons and eons, and hopefully will continue to go for eons and eons and eons if we manage not to destroy it with a nuclear holocaust created by saturating the planet with nuclear power stations when it's about to shake. That's it, folks. That's your biggest worry. Everything else could be an insurance job. Really, couldn't it? We could see so much of what's coming in. You know, I wrote in Laughing Gas, I said, don't leave Europe. Whatever you do, don't leave Europe. They're going to do everything in their power to blame everything on Europe. They're going to tell you it's all the evil stuff. You're going to blame it all on Europe, and then you're going to leave, and then the entire world economy will collapse because they're going to take you into something whole and new, a whole new contract, a whole new deal. But they've got to get you out of the old one, first of all, because you ain't going to be willing to sign this. So they're going to do a sweepstake with the US dollar and all these fiat-based currencies. They're going to drive it into a massive recession. And they're going to put it all back before they start a new system. And I, of course, in the book Laughing Gas, tried to see why. What was it all about? Why was it so necessary? Why do the sweepstake? Why not just keep it going? Why do we have to go through this massive process? Why are they doing it? And of course, we come to this big choice time. How do you get someone to choose war, aggression, and a lower frequency, a lower vibration to go with the lowest common denominator? Take all their food away, take all their assets away, drive them into the dirt, make them push all their allies away, kick their European dinner plate clean out the door. And then you literally watch Boris Johnson stating absolutely fact that he intends to join all these free trade, TTIP or TPP and partners, and join this whole free trade thing up. Everything the Brexiteers said that it was Europe. Everything. Did you hear a peep out of any of the Brexiteers then? Not a peep. Not a peep. Don't forget, it's yourselves you have to answer to at the end of all of this. At the end of this, you walk away, it's your world. These genes were passed on to you. The previous people had them, they had to fight and do whatever they had to do so they could pass them on to you. It's just whether you want to pass this generation on to someone else, or you just want to be the concluding, whether you want to be the weakest link in this story. Whether you want to just completely ignore that all these generators are running at this time when you are perilously close to massive bodies. And you want to think maybe your ego level, or the part that might be back, keep you, or the part that might be about to leave, or the part that might be about to arrive. Maybe its message to you is that if we can't have you, no one can have you. And that's what I'm much more like. Seeing it from that perspective gives me a lot more compassion for humanity, because the message I was given when I was shown Planet X in 2015 for the first time myself, after writing Laughing Gas, always saying, I want to know where the wall is. Kept telling me that you approach the wall and blah, 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 and nothing gets past the wall that is a war and blah, blah, blah. And I always wanted to know what the wall was. Was it some kind of vibrational thing? And when it showed me Planet X flying by really close to the Earth and it misses and it goes straight by, I just ran to that space that I go to when I write. And I said, tell me it misses. Tell me it misses. That's all I wanted to know was, are we going to survive that? Tell me that misses. Tell me it's worth me doing all of this effort. Don't tell me that thing's just going to come in and it's just, that's it. We're all just splattered and it's all game over. And the answer I got was just drenched in bliss. And it said, yes, it misses. It is not human karma. It is deemed you're not a race of war, but you are a race subverted with war, and that will now change. So stay with it. I know it's a big one. I still don't know what's coming in. I still don't know what's coming through. I still don't know how this is going to go, but you have a lot more sovereign power than you ever realize. You're not the enemy of this. You're just the conduit in which soul comes to experience and incarnate in humanity. There is much subverting this earth at the moment, but if you don't want this chip, if you don't want to go with this program anymore, if you're up for a different type of agenda, so much higher vibration, there is doors. The door is open for humanity to take a higher road, and if it chooses to take that higher road, it will be protected. Just as before, it will be protected through that journey. It can go for the highest vibration existence. It is allowed that. It is worthy of that. It has learnt the woes of war. We've only invaded ourselves here over and over and over. Another race has ruled over humanity for a long time using this maritime law and has bludgeoned it through the ages and ruled it through war, division and tyranny, pain and suffering. We're ready for a high vibration existence now. We're ready to take this up a notch, to come out of these stupid greenwashing stories, these nonsense stories. Take it up a level. So it's a long one, big one. Not got you really that much closer, because I still truly don't know. But I am suspecting, with the type of seismology that we're seeing right now, that we might be expecting a flyby. And where I was going with the whole kind of Jupiter thing, that aspect of all these different cycles, when we look at the big cycle, is that where, like, say, the 20th of January 1939, or the 20th of January 1607 seem to be the kind of points where we see the biggest aspect of change. The 2011, because of the 2004 sighting, seems to be one of the bigger aspects. And I don't know if we'll have to wait till 2023 to see the biggest aspect. You know, that would take it one complete cycle to the next point. And I'm of a mind that that point from 2011, March 2011, running, well, it was actually February 2010 really, but February 2010 running up to, because obviously we had the 8.8 in Chile in 2010 on February the 27th, which is like, you know, 1 year and 13 days before. So it's kind of like a 13-day difference in astronomical positioning, which is another key point to really kind of giving you that aspect of where we were. But astronomically, how definitively there was something, two standalone earthquakes of massive magnitude occur within 13-day different astronomical difference within a, you know, it's just 1 year and 13-day difference. They were 13 days apart. It gives you such a kind of clear image of something. It's like the kind of like the Schumann resonance over the last 3 days spiking at that same point in the day. It's just like, guys, you can't just ignore. It's like someone knocking at your front door. Bang, bang. You're like, hello? Someone there? Yeah, it's a tsunami, a massive tsunami. The whole Earth's axis shifts. Japan, the whole country shifts. Just something massive happened. It's not putting in our calculators at all, anywhere. Nothing. Nothing. Just managed to build another 50 nuclear reactors. Just got out to know. Nearly got his 500, guys. Come on! We are completely, and us humanity is completely insane at the moment, isn't it? Completely insane. All of those, all the whole carbon dioxide crew on my side, just like they will not entertain this on any level. On any level, just think of a nutbag, total nutbag. Won't go near it. Won't go near it. You know, just so weird. And all the Trumpies shouting out that the whole carbon story is nutbag, and they just think that's evil. Even though Trump, I just cannot see how Trump could be. He's such kind of like, he's sitting on this unbelievably powerful nugget of information, which he's kind of used in a massive way to kind of get his power, to get a massive great hold in the kind of in the electoral seat. Although he's kind of like blown it a little bit with this whole virus, although he claims he's the whole victim of this. But then, you know, this is a massive, great story to push you into a free trade deal. A free trade deal that is just going to carve us all up and give them the right to rule over us, to rule over our minds. And ultimately kind of like through that ruling to kind of decide the soul group that is incarnating in humanity, or at least legitimately run another feed of another soul into humanity, so that we have to be a duality, have our own souls, our divine souls, and have these kind of like this ego soul. But like I say, at the end of this, there's only one. That's as was explained to me at the very first instant. Was put simply, your earth will no longer support duality. It's going to be one or the other. Each human being, one soul, one human. That's how it goes at the end of this. And humanity chooses how bad it wants to be. And if it wants to leave reactors running at a time when we can clearly see that they're likely to shake, then we can attempt to live with the consequences of that, can't we? Or we can lobby and shout it out if we really don't care. If we don't care enough, really. I mean, can we only care if we get paid? Is that what it's all about? Dave's attacking his own. He's a nutbag. Good luck out there. Whatever you choose to do, it's all in our court. It's the ball's in our court right now. What we choose to do, who we choose to be. You know, like I say, I feel like they've got us at gunpoint here with the nuclear power stations. Make it very difficult for high help to step in, that causing massive damage, not just wiping out humanity, but wiping out all life on this planet, whole planet. Is at the end of this nuclear barrel, the whole planet. Good luck through there. Good luck out there, however this goes. Sorry, you know, I'm not making that many videos at the moment. Really, I just bring together the kind of all the different shots, really, and try and make some sense of it. You know, and it's you know, the first ever vision I ever had really was I did have a dream when I was a kid, crazy dream when I was a kid. It was like a vision because I woke up in it. I won't tell you about that one. It was when I was into the eclipse in '95, and I was staring up at the eclipse. It's the first time I'd been into India, and I'd fallen mad in love, and I was staring up at this eclipse, you know, this crazy party in Monkey Temple in Rajasthan. And there was this kind of like phallus carved into it. It was like a Shiva lingam, but it was in this kind of Brahman. It was in this Brahman temple. It's kind of much more Brahman in Rajasthan, Rishikesh, around that sort of area. But it was during this camel fair. All these camels and all these nomads were coming in across the desert. It was the most breathtaking sights I'd ever seen in my entire life. It was such an enchanted time. I went to a crazy trance party. I'd never been to a trance party. It was like so insane. It was mad. It was to die for. It was the most fantastic party I'd ever been to in my life, and still today probably is. You know, because I just wasn't expecting it. It was as magical as the first eclipse I saw. It was just so totally enchanted. And as I stared up at the eclipse, my mind started calculating. I kind of wondered, I just asked this calculation in my head, I go, what are the chances of the sun and the moon being the same size in the sky? And as I did that, my head started automatically running this kind of crazy calculation, and I could feel it burning through the mathematics of this equation on its own, like it was ripping through mathematics in such a way, and then it just came to a stop. And as it came to a stop, it just said, no chance. And as I was just perplexed at what had just happened in my own head, I was standing next to this Shiva lingam, or this lingam that had been it was a natural formation in the rock that the whole temple had been built around. And I had this image of this as the kind of like the blue, the kind of blue of the sky, or it was this notion of blue and yellow, of the blue and the moon rather, and the yellow of the sun, and this blue and this yellow fusing together. And the blue was of the mushroom. With the mushroom, it was like the end of the kind of the last age was flooding of this overindulge of this feminine, of the emotion that we kind of, the world flooded in extremities that potentially we took it to extreme on one level. It was a very simplistic kind of thing. I don't know how I got there, but then it went to the other side, and it was taking the other end, the masculine side, and the fire and the yellow to the absolute extreme. And then this boat I'm painting is, you know, it came with all this blue and yellow paint, and I didn't really like it that much. And it was a bit kind of like, and then I tried mixing them together, and it was like this green. I I didn't really like the green very much either, and so I just kind of like, but it took me on this whole journey, and then I thought maybe I could paint loads of yellow on it because I really like yellow, but the blue and the yellow is a bit like the classic Waterways colour, and it's an old Waterways boat, so she's probably why I had all this blue and yellow on board, and so and then I've painted all the yellow, and I basically ran out of yellow before I could actually cover it enough because I had to put so many coats on. I just didn't realise, the yellow is such a good colour to get a car, I think, because I didn't realise how much yellow you have to put on. So you must get so much more yellow paint. People say it's the best paint; it doesn't fade. That's probably because there's so much more of it. So top tip, if you want better kind of like protection, probably best to buy a yellow car because you need so much more paint to cover it. Anyway, I run out of yellow paint, and I was just kind of like hoping that maybe that's our little story. Maybe I'm just needed to remind that maybe we needed to know both sides, but maybe we don't have to take it to the nuclear age. Maybe we could back off from that. Maybe we could back down from that, come out of that warring, animalistic kind of like side, and realize that we could have peace on this earth. We really could have peace on this earth. This is just a massive, great front to divide us at every front at the moment. We don't have to take it to the absolute edge. We could backtrack, and there is a chance that we have backtracked. There is a chance that this global attempt is being used as an attempt to shut down all the industry and shut down all of those reactors. Maybe that's behind all of this. Maybe they've taken responsibility because it is looking like things are about to shake. Whether this is going to be the big one, we just don't know. The only thing we have to go by is kind of like really in terms of seismology is the 262 account, 3 days of darkness, and the 1607 account where we had the flood, and potentially the 1939 passage, and they were all when we were on the other side. They were all on the other side. Like I say, when it was coming in for the, that's where kind of the clock begins and the clock ends in the cycles. That's for me the beginning and the end point. But you could argue that here is that point, but seismically and that sort of stuff, it does seem to be more around that time in terms of where we're going to count the units from. It's 262 and all the different sightings, where we're going to say that cycle begins and ends. Really, it's a constant cycle. It doesn't have a beginning or an end. But if we were going to kind of unitize it and kind of like try to like build calendars and kind of like work a sort of a thing out where we've seen characters, where we've seen throughout history, it does seem that the best poise to do that is kind of like the date starts on the date starts 1939, the year the Second World War began. That was the beginning of the cycle. That's how the ruling class wanted to keep this going. That was their vision of the future. That was the beginning, the massive cleansing to start this all out, and the wiping of the slate clean, the beginning of the age. This fits in with all the other cycles. And we're just rebelling against that agenda now. Coming out of that agenda and potentially taking this up a notch or down a notch. It's humanity's choice. Good luck anyway. Good luck out there. Still don't know what's coming in. Interesting stuff. Interesting seismology going on. Interesting volcanism. Interesting kind of Schumann resonance. We've got all the indicators. All the usual suspects. We just still got, I always said it was going to be, from here till the end of June that we'll find out. And it's been a ride. So sorry for the massive video. I know I do go on, and it is what it is. It's a lot of data to bring together in one fell swoop. And I guess we are what we are. we'll do the best we can and pray that when that hour comes, that we'll have the type of assistance that we need to combat this problem, because we haven't got that type of technology on our own. We need help. Pray for it. Really think about where you direct your prayers, who you're directing your prayers to, what your intentions are, what you're trying to achieve. Everything's running like clockwork. Well, I said it would happen in laughing gas if we left Europe. Throw whatever story you like at it. The Brexiteers will throw whatever story because they cannot say. People who are in blame will never take responsibility. Never. People who are in blame only know blame. It's very, very, very difficult for them to ever point the finger at their own error. They generally just withdraw. And then they withdraw for a little while, go into their silent little kind of self-destructive space where they don't really acknowledge it, and then wait a little bit of time, and then blame comes out again. And that's their cycle, unless they choose to change that. And start seeing that this is us that are being used to implement this. This isn't coming from out there, it's coming from us. We are the bits that have to change in this story. We have to change the story. No one else can change it for us. That's where the revolution is going to come inside of us. And it's not a revolution, it's just plain old evolution. Take care. Thanks for putting up with me. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Dave Dobbs here. It's the 15th of May, Friday the 15th. Welcome. We're in a crazy time. We are literally playing Russian roulette with nuclear power stations. Literally playing Russian roulette with nuclear power stations, traversing our whole sun, and it seems all the planets orbiting around our sun: Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars, not Jupiter, not Saturn. But we are passing past. This image here is an image I've just seen posted up, actually. Shiny light disk object filmed in Nairobi, Kenya. That's just come in. It's Jupiter, in my opinion. I mean, let's just jump across to, say, an image of Jupiter and see that disk down there and the cluster. And you know, we've over the while we've seen so many images like this, you know, when Steve Olsen sort of like posted it up in 2018, did a kind of like you know, put one over the other, you know, and we saw Jupiter again, and I've been saying it's up there in this position. Did they say an account of where it is? Well, yeah, there's I was enjoying the sunset when I let my eyes wander, and then right above me up in the sky I saw what appeared to look like a small shiny disc. I immediately rushed out to get my camera. Managed to get videos. So, you know, he shows it and it's a bit blurry here and there, and potentially I'm not getting it right, but that's what I'm expecting to see. Remember what, you know, we saw. Let me just change my one share, because I'm going to show you some epic shit, some epic shots from right across the board. Mostly of, obviously, you know, the main thing I charter in this has been the tail, the twin tail objects, trying to ascertain their duration, where they're coming from, where they're going. And man, I've got a show for you, because I haven't made a video in quite a while. I've just been trying to bring it all together, Right now, I say that there's, we're playing Russian roulette with nuclear power stations and what have you. But we've got what 450 supposedly operational nuclear power stations on the planet. Now, if we go to, obviously, I often talk about the kind of perihelion point, don't I? So of when supposedly Jupiter is officially at its next perihelium, its closest point to the sun, which are the official figures of that are ironically the 20th of January, 2023. And if you go back an exact duration of Jupiter from that date, you come to pretty much the exact time Chernobyl went bang, not Chernobyl, Fukushima went bang. And then if you go back another sequence, another exact duration again, you come to pretty much the same time Chernobyl went bang. And I've talked a lot about this anomaly with Jupiter. We all saw it in 2018. It was so massive, wasn't it? It was massively blue. Scott Sion got an amazing shot of it, I think around about May, June, on his Planet X news channel. It was a phenomenal shot. We were all calling it the Blue Kachina then. I had, at that stage, it was a woman called Christina Lamont, who was absolutely shouting to me, Dave, look, I really think this is all about Jupiter. I really think this is all about Jupiter. She was a bit like, she was as kind of full on with it as I remember when Becky Lewis was screaming out to me saying, Dave, I'm catching so much other stuff. Why won't you talk about this other stuff? And I just, for me, it's all about the patterns. It's all about the patterns because there is so much data. I'm going to show you some of the data that's just come in over the last kind of 3 months. I'm going to try and bring some of this data together to give you a bit of an understanding, because we're in a situation right now that we've just seen like 100 little, what was it? It was something, I don't know if I've got it on this one, Dutch Science. We've just seen on May the 13th, scientists detected more than 100 earthquakes beneath Luihai. I don't know how you say that. Could anyone in the comments maybe tell? Because I can remember when sort of like Kilauea went off, and I just didn't know how to say Kilauea either. So, however you say that, because I don't want to do any insult to these, because many of these volcanoes are named after gods and things like that. So it'd be terrible to get the pronunciation wrong, But we're expecting this, aren't we? Or are we expecting this? This is the big debate, Well, that's why because I've been expecting flybys, and man, what has gone on. Let me take you through the sequence of events. Let me change. Let me do a new share, and we'll just come over to